Let me ask you something. What if the way we've been building software for decades, with all the rigid plans and endless sprints, is just wrong? What if it's actually holding us back? Today, we're going to explore a completely different way of thinking, one that treats software not like a machine you build, but like a living, breathing organism that you grow. So let's really think about that for a second. What if we stopped trying to engineer every last detail from the start, and instead we started by planting a seed, a core idea that we nurture and guide as it develops into something complex and powerful? This is the fundamental shift we're diving into today.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why the old ways just aren't cutting it anymore. Then, we'll unpack the two big ideas behind this new framework, something called organic development, and a really cool concept involving human-centric stories. We'll see how they fuse together, and then check out a real-world case study to see it in action. Stick around.
All right, so before we can really appreciate this new approach, we have to understand what we're moving away from. For years, software development has been dominated by methods like Waterfall and Agile. And look, they've gotten us pretty far, but they've also got some serious cracks, especially in the crazy, fast-changing world we live in now.
This table really lays it all out. You had Waterfall, which was basically built to resist change at all costs. Then Agile came along, which was a huge leap forward, right? It was all about managing change in small cycles. But this new method, called COD, it does something totally different. It doesn't just manage change, it thrives on it. It sees change as a core part of growth, a way for the software to learn and adapt. It's a total mindset shift from fighting change to actually using it.
Okay, so now that we've seen the problem with the old playbook, let's get to the solution. It's called Concept Organic Development, or COD for short. And it's a pretty radical idea. What if we treat software not like a static building, but like a dynamic, living system?
At its heart, COD is all about changing our perspective. Instead of trying to force a piece of software into a box we designed months ago, we let it evolve naturally. We guide it based on its environment and feedback from users. It's less about being an architect and more about being a gardener.
So how does this actually work? Well, it's all built on these 5 key ideas. First, you have to truly believe in software as a living system. That's the bedrock. Then there's emergent design, which just means you don't have to have all the answers up front. The best solutions are allowed to emerge as you go. Discovery-driven development means you embrace the unknown and let new insights steer the ship. Holistic growth makes sure all the pieces of the system grow together, not in isolation. And finally, adaptability is the engine that powers the whole thing, letting you pivot and improve constantly.
Now, looking at this list, you might think, okay, looks like a standard step-by-step process. But that's not it at all. The reality is way more dynamic. These steps aren't a straight line. They're a cycle. They overlap, they repeat. You start with that seed of an idea, you explore it, you integrate what works, you get feedback, you adapt, and then, and this is key, you prune the system, kind of like a gardener, to keep it healthy and efficient. It's this constant loop of growth and refinement. So, we've got this incredible framework for growing software organically, but there's a huge piece of the puzzle missing. How do you make sure that what you're growing is, well, good, that it's aligned with what people actually need and what's good for society? How do you avoid accidentally growing a monster? That's where the second half of this equation comes in, scenario-driven narrative analysis.
Think of it like this. If COD is the powerful engine of growth, SDNA is the steering wheel, the conscience. It uses storytelling, creating realistic human situations to figure out the real-world impact of the software. It's a way to basically stress test your creation in a simulated story, so you can spot the ethical pitfalls and unintended consequences before they ever become real problems.
The real genius of SDNA is in these principles. It's all about real-world scenarios, not abstract features. It uses stories to explore what could happen, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It deliberately brings in multiple viewpoints to help you see the things you'd otherwise miss. And most importantly, it forces you to think about the ethical and societal impact of your work. So you're building tech that's not just smart, but also wise.
Okay, this is where it all clicks together. This is the really exciting part. What happens when you take the adaptive evolutionary power of COD and you combine it with the human-focused ethical lens of SDNA? You get something way more than just the sum of its parts. You get a truly unified framework for building software that's not just technically brilliant, but deeply and thoughtfully human.
Let's break this down. COD gives you the how.
It's the practical, hands-on methodology for building your software in a flexible, iterative way. It's the engine, right? It lets you respond to change and evolve the product over time.
But an engine with no direction is just chaos. And that's where SDNA steps in. It provides the why. It's the moral compass, the purpose, the direction that guides all those technical decisions. It helps you understand the human impact of your work so you can build something that's not just powerful, but also has a purpose. And these two things aren't just sitting next to each other. They're completely intertwined. SDNA makes every single part of the COD process better. Your exploration phase isn't just random prototyping. It's driven by building actual narratives. Your feedback loops aren't just about bug reports. They're enriched with diverse human perspectives. And the growth of your software isn't aimless. It's guided by constantly challenging it with these real-world scenarios. It's this beautiful dance between the how and the why.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing in theory, right? But what does it look like when the rubber meets the road? Let's jump into a really fascinating case study that shows exactly how this unified framework can be used to tackle a seriously complex, high-stakes problem.
So imagine this. There's an AI algorithm that's supposed to help doctors make life-or-death healthcare decisions. But what if that algorithm has a hidden bias, leading to unfair or even dangerous outcomes for certain groups of people? I mean, the stakes don't get much higher than that. This was the exact challenge a team of researchers decided to take on.
So how do they do it? They got creative. They used SDNA to create a fictional but totally realistic scenario, a dramatized debate between a policy analyst, an insurance executive, and a mediator. And to power this debate, they built an app called Counterpoint, which was designed specifically to help surface the hidden assumptions and biases in the AI's logic.
And the results were pretty remarkable. By running the AI through the story-driven stress test, they found the biases they were looking for. The Counterpoint application itself evolved and got better using the CD process, and they ended up with concrete, actionable recommendations to make the original AI more transparent and fair, like calling for independent audits. This really worked.
I mean, that case study alone is a pretty powerful argument for this whole approach. But it begs the bigger question. Is this the future of how we develop software? To answer that, we've got to be honest and look at both the good and the bad.
The upsides here are huge. You get a way deeper understanding of how your software will actually be used in the messy real world. You get stakeholders involved in a much more meaningful way. It's fantastic for tackling complex, wicked problems. And, maybe most importantly, ethical thinking isn't an afterthought. It's baked right into the process from day one.
But of course, it's not a silver bullet. This approach has its challenges. That organic, fluid process can be tricky to scale up with really big teams. It definitely requires a new way of thinking about documentation, and you might have to work hard to get buy-in from stakeholders who are used to rigid timelines and predictable roadmaps. It requires careful management to avoid just wandering off course.
But even with those hurdles, the final verdict from the source material is, well, it's a glowing one. It gives this combined methodology a 9.5 out of 10. That's a huge endorsement, celebrating its innovation, its adaptability, and its fundamentally user-centric design. It really feels like an approach built for the world we live in today.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Is software a machine we build from a blueprint, or is it a living thing that we have to nurture and grow? What we've seen today is more than just a new methodology. It's a whole new philosophy. It's a move away from a rigid, mechanical view of the world to one that's more organic, more adaptive, and maybe a little more human. So I'll just leave you with that question to chew on. Are you ready to stop building and start growing?